to school. And I just wanted to know what your ideas are around making sure that character development curriculum or in-class support for behavioral challenges, professional development for teachers to address children with these issues, kind of like what are your ideas around integrating that process into the success of children?
Yeah, let me go back to the Harlem Kids Zone because it's so well known and it's something that people can sort of look at. What I thought the fundamental difference and what I enjoyed when I visited there was often as a school board member, we were only given funding to help the kids individually. The whole attempt, I think, of looking at something like the Kids Zone is that you can help the whole family. They get it that if the family can't pay its rent, they told us when we went to their counselors that one of the main things they were doing in terms of parent support in Harlem was helping them stay in Harlem because the rents were going up really high and getting them rent subsidies and stabilizing the family. Because if you have a family that's constantly moving because they can't afford rent or they're homeless or, we can take care of the kids while they're in school, but when they go home and there's no heat, which is happening more and more in the city, or their families are about to be evicted, et cetera, their families are losing their home, it's hard for the kid to have a stable emotional feel. Right now, there are two crimes that are going up in the city of Oakland, or were earlier in the year: home burglaries and domestic violence. So what's the tie? They both go up in bad economic times. And so what I'd like, the big picture is, what I like about Tony's vision for a complete school is that you have maybe the opportunity to help the whole family and not just separately the kid. In a lot of the city initiatives that have helped, let's talk about Measure Y for a moment. Measure Y has funding actually to try to break the cycle of family violence so that we have a program that works in our Head Start programs where we have families where we know there's domestic violence or there's been violence or somebody that's been killed in the family, where we've been giving extra help to those families, extra family counseling, et cetera. And I think you have to look at it in that context. What can we do even before they get to school? What kind of support can we develop? So a lot of the Measure Y funds, we're going for that, and that's why passing BB is pretty critical. I still think that people have not heard the story. Some of you have Measure Y funds too. I don't think people have really heard the story. I was very unhappy to see today the Tribune came out against BB. I think that they don't get it. They just look at it from the police angle. They don't get how critical the Measure Y funds. I mean, the federal government got it. We just got $3 million augmentation to help expand the Measure Y programs. And I was sort of concerned that if we don't have the initial programs, will we still get the expansion programs? And we may have to rewrite those if we don't pass BB. But BB, according to the polling, is right on the edge. And so those of you who have violence prevention programs need to tell about your successes. You need to say, if you've got one of the programs where we've cut the recidivism, is that the number of kids who are in trouble in the law within a year in half, you've got to cut that. Again, with the after-school programs and the violence prevention and the family intervention, I think we need to discuss that program by program. How can we help the whole family in this context? Because just helping the kids is good, but it doesn't necessarily have as big as a bang for our bucks as if we can make sure that we help families themselves be more stable.
Okay. I'm interested to know how you see full community service schools rolling out with choice in that. And
I'll be honest, I'm not sure. I think that's something we're going to have to discuss. I'm guessing that under choice, the most vulnerable families still don't use their option. The reality is that when I've watched the national studies, I still read Ed Week occasionally, that even with all the choice initiatives, the most vulnerable families, the poorest, the ones with the least education, still don't opt for a lot of the choice. And so I think every neighborhood school still has to be strong, and that my preference is that kids go to school in their neighborhood because you can build a more organic system of help and support. I'm guessing my instinct would say that making sure that there's a strong sort of village center type school in every neighborhood that anybody can come to would be critical. So for example, as I said, I'm on the Youth Ventures Safe Passages Board, which is a collaboration with the county and the city and the schools. And we got this Atlantic grant to put clinics in every middle school. So we will have 8 clinics in the neighborhoods where there's the most need. And those clinics will be open to people's families. So I'm guessing that we can make sure maybe that we at least have, because the middle schools are pretty evenly spaced around town, that we could have at least the strongest cluster of services minimally in the middle schools, and then also in the larger elementary schools around, because we're not going to be able to do all 120 facilities equally at the same time. But I think we're going to have to make sure it's prioritized in the neighborhoods that have the most need, and that there's one in every area. And I'm guessing just because of how the funding goes and the facilities, that large elementaries and middle schools will be the first ones, and that the services after school, particularly like health clinics and other things, can be open to more than the parents that are in that area. But, you know, the choice, the other problem with the choice, and that we have to make so it's truly a choice, and to make sure that parents get around, we really have to find a way to get AC transit. There's a Genesis project where we're trying to get free bus passes for kids in urban areas and get that out of Measure A transportation funds, because kids don't really have choice if their parents can't afford the transportation.